Recording screen. Okay, good morning, Bernard.
Good morning, Dr. Priscilla.
And how are you today?
I'm fine, and I look at your screen, ready to read.
Okay, so today we'll read from Breaking News English, Scientists Puzzled by Flashes on the Moon. If you'll start to read just by reading the title first, that would be great.
Okay. Scientists puzzled by flashes on the moon. Scientists across the world are puzzled as to why there are flashes appearing on the surface of the moon. This unusual phenomenon has been happening.
Unusual.
This unusual phenomenon has been happening several times a week. Sometimes the flashes of light are very short, while at other times the light lasts longer. Scientists have also observed that on occasion there are places on the moon's surface that darkened temporarily. Experts on the moon have been speculating on what is behind the flashes. One scientist said the impact of a meteorite can cause the moon's surface to glow briefly. Another scientist wondered whether the flashes occurred when electrically charged particles of solar wind reacted with moon dust. A lunar telescope has been set up in Spain to observe what's happening on the moon. The head of the team behind the telescope is Hakan Kayal, a professor of space technology. He said, seismic activities were observed on the moon. When the surface moves, gases that reflect sunlight could escape from the interior of the moon. This would explain the luminous phenomena, some of which last for hours, he added. He added, the so-called transient lunar phenomena have been known since the 1950s, but they have not been sufficiently observed. Professor Kayal said, anyone who wants to build a lunar base at some point must, of course, be familiar with the local conditions.
Okay, so we just read about flashes on the moon. I will read now. Scientists puzzled by flashes on the moon. Scientists across the world are puzzled as to why there are flashes appearing on the surface of the moon. This unusual phenomenon has been happening several times a week. Sometimes the flashes of light are very short, while at other times the light lasts longer. Scientists have also observed that on occasion there are places on the moon's surface that darken temporarily. Experts on the moon have been speculating on what is behind the flashes. One scientist said the impact of a meteorite can cause the moon's surface to glow briefly. Another scientist wondered whether the flashes occurred when electrically charged particles of solar wind reacted with moon dust. A lunar telescope has been set up in Spain to observe what is happening on the moon. The head of the team behind the telescope is Hakan Kayal, a professor of space technology. He said seismic activities were observed on the moon. When the surface moves, gases that reflect sunlight could escape from the interior of the moon. This would explain the luminous phenomena, some of which last for hours. He added, the so-called transient lunar phenomena have been known since the 1950s, but they have not been sufficiently observed. Professor Kayal said, anyone who wants to build a lunar base at some point must, of course, be familiar with the local conditions.
Okay.
All right. So what is this article about? And as you talk about the article, you see the words here on the right, puzzled, appearing, on occasion. Try to use these vocabulary words as you talk about this article.
Some scientists are puzzled about some phenomenon appearing on the moon on some occasions. These phenomenon are the apparition of lights, sometimes during hours, and last temporarily from few minutes to hours.
Mm-hmm.
The lights glows the moon, and to study the phenomenon, they set up a telescope in Spain. I don't know why in Spain and not in the USA, to study what's happening on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, the phenomenon is already known for many years because it began in 1950s, the observation of these lights. Transient, it's in the idea of the scientist, the phenomenon has not sufficiently observed during this period, and it could be a problem if one day the human would build a base on the lunar earth, on the lunar planet, because the light and the phenomenon could be damaging for the base. I used all the words unless transient, because I don't know the name transient.
Okay. I believe transient means to be able to see through. Let's see if I can find the word transient in the article.
In the second paragraph.
We are. The second paragraph. A lunar telescope has been set up in Spain. I'm not sure why it's in Spain either, but it is in Spain, to observe what is happening on the moon. The head of the team behind the telescope is Hakan Kayal, a professor of space technology. He said seismic activities were observed on the moon. When the surface moves, gases that reflect light could escape from the interior of the moon. This would explain the luminous phenomena, some of which last for hours. He called the so-called transient lunar phenomena have been known since the 1950s. Transient, I believe, is to be able to see through. Let's see what it would it be over here. Shine, perplex, establish this. Maybe becoming visible.
Invisible, perhaps, yes.
Becoming visible. And I'll do my quick little. Let's see. 8. It says it's C, short-lived. Transient. Oh, transient. Yeah, it's short-lived because when I lived in my condo, the neighbors were transient. I had transient neighbors. They didn't live there very long. People that travel or move about is transient. You understand?
Something short-lived. If
Yeah.
you are a transient leave, if you have a transient leave, it's a leave we wouldn't last only a few years.
Right. Or as I said, when I lived in my other house before moving here, my neighbors were transient. They didn't rent very long before they were moving out and someone else would move in.
Okay.
So it's a temporary living conditions. But in this case, it's talking about this phenomena doesn't last very long. It's what makes it transient. Have you heard of the flashes across the moon before? I had
No,
not.
It was the first time I heard about this phenomenon,
Yeah.
who is well known since 1950s.
Uh-huh. Well, I'm not even so sure that you can see it with the human eye, the flashes across. Let's look at this one. You think weightlessness would be the best thing about moon life or the Earth? You think the view of Earth would be the best thing about moon life? Roll C. You think the unknown would be the best thing about moon life? Or D. You think no pollution would be the best thing about moon life? Let's see if we can make some conversation about choose one of the four and just tell me why you feel that it would be the best thing about moon life. If you chose weightlessness, maybe I would say I would choose weightlessness as the best thing about moon life is because your feet never have to touch the ground. You're always floating around. Travel would be easy. The view of Earth would be the best thing about moon life is that I could observe what people are doing. I can see how they drive, how recklessly they drive, how safely they drive, things like that. Choose one and just talk freely about it for a few minutes.
What does it mean, weightlessness?
When you're weightless, that means that if you were to stand on a scale, instead of weighing 150 pounds, it would show 0. You have no.
Okay. It's because of presenter. Okay. When you are in the moon, you're restless than the Earth.
Yes. Mm-hmm. There's no gravity on the moon. Let's suppose.
Okay. So restless, I understand. The view of Earth, I understand. The unknown.
Yes. And the unknown could be just anything that you don't know about.
Okay. Yes. And no pollution. If you live on the moon, there's no pollution unless there's a pollution in the Earth. Okay. So I suppose something will be very amazing is to be in the moon and to jump over the rocks, to jump over the obstacles.
Okay, so now it would be to jump if you were on the moon, not in the moon, but if you were on the moon.
If I were on the moon, I will be weightlessness than in the Earth, and it will be amazing for me to jump upon the rocks or to jump and could jump a record that I couldn't do in the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine that I'd be a champion of athleticism.
Okay, so we would take some of our sports activities to the moon and have some type of competition to see who might be a winner.
Yes.
Okay, that would be interesting.
But one thing I couldn't imagine is to live in the moon because there's no pollution. Because I suppose it will be very difficult to live in the moon because on the moon there's no atmosphere and you need to live in a special dress called a scaphandre.
Right. And also, if there were pollution on the moon, it would be rising up into the ground, from the ground into the air. And as you maneuvered yourself around on the moon, you would come in contact with this pollution, or even the rocks, if there is such a thing, just floating around. It seems like it might be quite dangerous to be around up there in the moon. Yeah, I would rather stay here on the Earth. I'm familiar with the Earth. I know where I'm going. I can get directions to go to different places. I could have a destination and have a general idea as to when I would get to that destination while on Earth. So I would choose on the Earth over the moon. All right, let's quickly do our match here for puzzled. What do you think?
Puzzle. Perplexed.
Perplexed, good.
Appearing, occurring.
Occurring, good.
On occasion, sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
Temporarily, briefly.
Briefly, I would agree.
Glow, shine.
Shine,
Set up, establish.
good.
Established. Happening, I don't know.
Happening is going to be
Occurring,
occurring.
occurring,
It's going to be occurring.
occurring.
So we've got
Appearing, becoming
appearing.
visible.
Yes, appearing is going to become.
Okay,
Well,
becoming visible.
let's go with my eraser. Appearing. And
Okay.
now we're going to change it back. Appearing is going to be becoming visible. And
Transient, short-lived,
short-lived.
sufficiently, adequately,
Adequately. Okay.
and is station.
Station. Good. So there we are. So we have our vocabulary words, and now we'll just do a little question and answer. Try to use either the words here on the right or the words on the left. Okay. So as we use the words, I'll put a. So my question for you, Bernard, have you ever been puzzled or perplexed about anything?
Oh, just it reminds me sometimes in the past, about 50 years ago. We were young with my wife. We were just married, and one night we drove in the countryside when sometimes there was lightning in the horizon. It was night, and it was a little frightening because the weather was very good. The night was dark, and we can't imagine why we see this light in the far farther from us. There wasn't any sound, just the light, and we were perplexed. We were puzzled about this phenomenon. I suppose it was a normal phenomenon, but we don't understand the cause.
We didn't understand the cause. So
We
this
didn't
was
understand the cause.
And you can choose words that I haven't used. So on this occasion, it was just you and your wife that was out. And this was something that had occurred that you had not seen before. And you were perplexed by it. Yes. So what did you do? What did you and your wife do when you saw this?
Yes, we did nothing. We just continued to drive without exchange a word, because we were in our thoughts, and we were so perplexed that we couldn't use the word to explain what you thought.
Okay, you could not find the words to explain what you saw. So was this something that happened briefly, or was it a longer happening?
It was something what happened during about few minutes, and even if it was transient, it was sufficiently amazing, and that we couldn't understand why this glow or this shine were from a base or were in the weather or in the sky.
Sometimes I think when short-lived occurrences occur, we could look at it in amazement, but if we feel that we are in danger, we need to find a safer place to be, such as a station where other people are around, and marvel at whatever it is that we're looking at.
Oh, I had forgotten this episode of my life, but I remember none.
Sometimes that happens. We see things and our mind can't adequately remind us what it was that we saw, but we know that something appeared, and it's an established something component in our brain that we do remember something, but we may not be able to make it become visible in the mind's eye as it originally occurred. So that should be an interesting setup if we could think about how it was accomplished. Okay, so there we were, just trying to use the words temporarily anyway to reinforce our understanding of the words when we've talked about the article. I will stop the recording.